Have you guys ever choked?
Oh, the great flash. Good. Oh, it's an absolute mess. And Simple sitting. No! Did not shot.
24 seconds now, pushing forward.
Oh, no.
But Nico
From Warehouse spots one not looking the right way. And
Maybe on, I don't know, a grape, water, wiener. Hey, Vitality and ZywOo fans, you guys got that shit on lock. Or maybe you've just choked a good old Counter-Strike game. A good old Mirage game where you were up, I don't know, 10-2 at half. And round after round after round, your team just continues to crumble. Well, if that's you, do not stress, because it happens in professional Counter-Strike all the time. And with the Major right around the corner, I thought I would go back in time and look at some of the most heartbreaking, brutal chokes in Counter-Strike Major history. Now, before we get into it, I do gotta say this video is gonna be a mix of individual player chokes, actual map chokes where you have a huge lead, and also narrative chokes of teams who should have performed way better, just completely underperforming. And without wasting any more time, let's get into it. The most recent choke we had at the Budapest Major, in my opinion, without a doubt, has to be Furia. There's a couple things that add on to this. Going into Budapest, Furia was without a doubt the hottest team in all of Counter-Strike, finally hitting their stride with Yakinder and Molodoy, having won 3 out of the last 4 S-tier tournaments right before Budapest, along with another tier 1.5-ish tournament. And even better, while Furia was really getting into form and looking like easily the best team in all of Counter-Strike, just at exactly the same time, it looked like Vitality was kind of in a downturn of form. After they won the Major in Austin, they'd only won 1 out of the 8 total S-tier tournaments, which was ESL Pro League Season 22, where they did beat Furia in the quarters. But other than that, they kind of looked a little disappointing. And so it looked like Furia was going to snatch Vitality's crown heading into this. Furia still looked incredibly good in the groups, going 3-0, beating Na'Vi 13-2, Imperial 13-5, and G2 2-0. And so going into the playoffs with this team being on fire, they were still the favorite to win the entire thing. And then in the quarters, to Na'Vi, a team that barely made it in the playoffs 3-2, a team that they had just destroyed in the groups 13-2, they lost in 3 maps. They got destroyed, map 1 Mirage 13-5, barely squeaked out Inferno in overtime 16-13 with some hero moments, especially from Fallen, and then got blown out in map 3 Train 13-3. For a team that had previously looked like easily the best team in all of Counter-Strike, in the quarters here against Na'Vi, the moment just kind of looked too big for the team, especially for the team's star upper Molodoy, who did have kind of major playoff issues at the Major before this. Overall, I would say just an incredibly disappointing performance from Furia here at Budapest. Their form looked like it completely just fell off a cliff as soon as they reached the playoffs.
Hello guys, it's me, Garmour, the first time you've ever seen me in person before. If you guys would like to support me or the stuff that I do here, check out the new long-term sponsor of the Garmour YouTube channel, SkinSwap. SkinSwap is the #1 place to trade your Rust or Counter-Strike skins for new ones where you can instantly upgrade your inventory. And if you use my code Garmour, you can get up to $50 on a free skin and a 3% lifetime selling bonus. And now you can easily buy skins off of the Chinese marketplace for cheaper prices than you ever could on the Western marketplaces. I truly think this is the best feature on any skin trading website, but if you are looking to sell, you can sell your skins for crypto, PayPal, Venmo, and a bunch of other withdrawal methods. Along with this, SkinSwap has a vault system now, which makes it the most rewarding skin trading website. And of course, don't forget the giveaways. And I think that's it. Thank you to them. Thank you to you guys. And back to the video.
The Austin Major's biggest choke, one of the worst chokes I've ever seen in my entire life, is, without a doubt, Falcons. In stage 2 of this major, the at the time #4 ranked team in the world, who was supposed to be one of the biggest opponents to Vitality, quite simply were looking terrible. They went down 0-2, losing to Bait and Lin Vision, then beating OG in a best of 3, and then in the 1-2 game needing to play MIBR. They would destroy MIBR map 1, lose map 2 on their pick, and then go to Inferno in a map 3, where we would would get an insanely close map 3 Inferno. At one point, it looked like Falcons were going to get blown out and whimper out of this major as they were down 4-10, but they somehow came back to barely sneak into overtime. Then in the first overtime, they had a map point at 15-14, which they could not close out. Then in double overtime, they once again have map point up 18-17, and we get Falcons in a 5v3 post plan on B site.
Just the three of them now with their fate in their hands. It's not looking good. It's not looking possible. The B site lost. And Sani empty-handed, 27 frag haul. Breno's been doing everything he can for the boys, and he keeps going. Soda's safe. Are they doing it? Is there a way back in? Nico's gone. Only matches. I can't believe it. MIBO on the defuse, and we need another.
They were down. They were out. That's a 3v5 retake.
Retaking on Inferno is one of the hardest things in the entire game, and somehow Falcons lost this 5v3 post plant to go into another overtime and lose the map 22-20, getting knocked out of the Austin Major in stage 2, 1-3. This was on the start of the Falcons mini-map meme, because over the next couple of months, we would continue to get Falcon screenshots where they would just be in these seemingly unlosable situations that they would just lose. And it pretty much all started here. Shanghai is kind of a tough one because initially I do want to say it's G2. It really seemed like this was their major to win, the NiKo last dance on G2. They had just won the event right before this, along with Blast Premier Fall Final 2024. You know, the iteration of this team with NiKo, m0NESY, Malbs, Hunter, and Snax kind of looked absolutely dominant at the time. Well, I guess not dominant, but just very, very good. Na'Vi was still one of the best teams in the world. You also had Spirit, but at this point, without a doubt, the best team in the world was either Na'Vi or G2. And even though I want to give it to G2 for losing to FaZe in the semis, I think I just have to give it to Na'Vi. Na'Vi had won the previous major. They ended up being Team of the Year in 2024. They won 4 total S-tier tournaments. They won IM Rio, which is just a couple of months before Shanghai happened. And despite all of this, somehow Na'Vi wouldn't make the playoffs, going 2-3 in the groups. And looking back at this, we did have kind of a couple warning signs because they did bomb out of the tournament right before this, Blast Premier World Final 2024, looking honestly horrible, like worse than we had ever seen them look, at least this year. They lost 0-2 to Astralis and then got eliminated by FaZe 1-2. And so there was a little bit of concern, but the general consensus was Na'Vi's been a great team all year. This surely is just a fluke. But then after getting knocked out of the Shanghai Major by Heroic 2-1, it became one of the biggest storylines of the event. Because in no universe, even with that kind of brutal event performance before this, I don't think anyone expected Na'Vi to completely miss the playoffs. Copenhagen happened right after the donk breakout at IEM Katowice, and so there were really 2 main storylines going into this event. Who was gonna win the major, Spirit or FaZe? And well, we wouldn't get them matched up in the finals. Instead, they would be matched up together in the quarterfinals of this event, where we would get a truly unbelievable series, one where FaZe would barely pull through 2-1. And well, for the first major in CS2 history, I'm not gonna pick Spirit for the biggest choke here. Instead, I'm gonna have to single out one player, and I'm sorry, I don't want to have to do this. This Spirit versus FaZe quarterfinal game, I personally remember for being one of the most brutal moment is too big for the player moments in Counter-Strike history, and that player is Zontics. Zontics specifically on Vertigo looked unbelievably nervous, and it even got to the point where Sponge calls him out for it.
Look on this rear grass. Oh, 1, 2, Brokey taking down Donk. This is all to play for with 30 seconds. The bomb, the pressure is on Magic's. Great clear, great trade. Brokey nailing shots. Rain builds upon it. It's up once more onto Zontics in the 1v2.
He doesn't look like he's up for it. He doesn't look like he's up for it at all.
Bomb, they're going to surely double peek you. You've got to plant. You've got to plant. Oh, not like that. 15 secure.
It's so tough to see a player get swallowed by the stage like this. It's so tough to watch. Think about all these clutch situations that he's found himself in. He's found some contributions late, sure, but in any of these situations where, you know, needs to show a bit of shine, a bit of polish, he's just looked well out of his depths. This is his first major, the first time on the stage. You can understand it, but it's just difficult to watch because you can see the brain whirring, but it's just not making sense.
He had just been doing uncharacteristically, like, terrified plays. It seemed like he was horrified to really do anything. And every fight he took, it seemed like it wasn't him confidently taking a duel. It was more of him shitting himself and just wanting the moment to be over. At least that's what it looked like from my end. And considering how close that map 3 was, with FaZe barely winning 16-14 in overtime, and Zontics being the worst rated player on Spirit with a 0.81, I think he individually really was the difference between Spirit winning and losing this series. And it does suck to like put that on one player, because at the end of the day, Counter-Strike is a team game. It's never just one player's fault. I'm sure everyone could have done a little bit better, even Donk, who played out of his fucking mind. But like, when you watch this game, it is glaringly obvious how unbelievably nervous Zontics was. Paris is one of the weirdest, most strange majors of all time, and that's mostly because a lot of really good teams underperformed and a lot of tier 2 teams overperformed and made the playoffs. And initially, 2 of my thoughts here was, what about G2? You know, with Nico and m0NESY, with I think being the #1 ranked team in the world by the time the RMRs for this happened, they went out 1-3 in groups, getting kicked out by Fnatic in their last game. They got stunned by Fasher to bomb out of the Paris Major. I also thought about Cloud9 because they didn't even make the Major here as like a top 5 team in the world. But honestly, looking at Cloud9's run, it was fucking brutal. In the RMR, they played Force, who they beat pretty easily, then lost to Monty, which is a really tough loss, don't get me wrong. At the time of this game, Monty was ranked number 32 in the world and Cloud9 was ranked number 5. But then again, looking at what Monty eventually did at this Major, maybe they were being underrated slightly. Then after losing to Monty, they beat Eternal Fire, and being 2-1 in the RMR, they have to play G2 and ENCE. G2 at the time was the #1 ranked team in the world, and ENCE was the #9 ranked team. So at the end of the day, should they have lost to ENCE and Monty? Absolutely not. It is still kind of on them, but I do get slipping up against a team like Monty, and then the draw against G2 and ENCE is just incredibly unfortunate. But it gets even worse, because at the last chance qualifier for that last spot, the team with Cloud9 there is FaZe, the #2 ranked team in the entire world. I know a lot of people like to complain about the new VRS system, but like, the RMRs for this Major is probably the #1 biggest glaring issue with them. Sure, all these top teams could have just played better at the RMR, I get that, but having FaZe and Cloud9 in the last chance decider is fucking brutal. Like, you're not gonna have a top 5 team at the Major. That sucks for everyone, I feel like. Anyways, enough yapping. I think the worst choke at this entire tournament is Heroic versus Gamer Legion in the semis, just because with all the weird stuff that happened here, it was still ramping up and looking like a Vitality Heroic finals, the #1 versus the #2 ranked team in the world, until Heroic lost to Gamer Legion, who was the #22 ranked team in the world in the semis. Now listen, I get Gamer Legion was like probably underrated during this time and they were a good team, but I don't care, okay? Without a doubt, Heroic still should have won this series. They literally were in the finals of the last Major. They made 3 finals of S-tier tournaments and won 1 in between the 2 majors. Like, they should without a doubt have at least been in the finals, and they lost to goddamn Gamer Legion. What are we doing, guys? For IEM Rio, I am going to go with a team who just bombed out of the RMR, and that is G2. G2 at the RMR, after beating Ecstatic 16-0, lost 3 straight series, and once again, the team that knocked them out of the RMR, the evil team, is Gamer Legion. It seems to be a common trend that the biggest chokes at these events is to Gamer Legion, but I mean, bro, at the time of this RMR match, G2 was the #5 ranked team in the world, and Gamer Legion was ranked number 60. Number 60 in the world. Gamer Legion knocked G2 out of the RMR for the Rio Major. I mean, bro, like, G2 at the end of CSGO is without a doubt one of the most disappointing teams in the entire scene. It is brutal, just brutal, the stuff they were going through. I mean, fuck, man, the moment was just too big for them. While they didn't win the worst choke award of Paris, I think without a doubt the worst choke of Antwerp was Cloud9. This was very shortly after the organization picked up the old Gambit team, and unfortunately, Cloud9's new roster would end up going 1-2 in the groups of Antwerp before needing to play Imperial in their 1-2 game. And heading into this game, Cloud9 was the #4 ranked team in the world. Imperial was the #18 ranked team in the world. And the entire reason Imperial even existed was for nostalgia purposes. The core was fallen Liquid, FUR, FNX, and Bolts. All players who had won trophies with one another in the past. Maybe not all at the same time, but you know what I mean. But FUR's last trophy was in 2018 with MIBR. FNX's last trophy was with SK in 2016. Bolt's last trophy was with SK in 2017. And Fallen's last trophy came at the same time FUR's did in MIBR in 2018. So, fast forward to the year 2022. It's been a minute for these fellas. And along with these four players, we also throw in Vinny, who got kicked from Furia. Along with Vinny just getting kicked, there's also FUR, who posted a .93 in 00 Nation right before this. He did not look good in that team. Bolts, who had been jumping around tier 2 teams for a minute now. Fallen, who had just gotten booted off of Liquid. FNX, who stopped playing professionally in 2017. And the year right before this was in a reality TV show. He wasn't even thinking about Counter-Strike at all. Came together for the bid under the Imperial banner and beat the number 4 ranked team in the world 2-1. And it wasn't even necessarily that close. They won map 3 16-3. It was a goddamn blowout. This is also after in map 1, Cloud9 were up 10-5 at half of Overpass. That ends up going to OT. They got 2 map points in the first OT, up 18-16. They lose 2 rounds in a row. They run it back, get 2 map points, being up 21-19. They lose back-to-back rounds, and then they lose map 1 of the series 25-23. If they won that, this wouldn't even be a conversation. Truly just one of the most diabolical series of all time against the nostalgia Imperial team. EGL Major Stockholm. Sure, you could have a couple different things for this, but everyone knows what this is.
Electronic caught! Simple baits it! His leg stuck through the smoke, Simple to save them. Drive by onto Nexa, 2 frags away from G2 extending play. Hunter and Nico, how poetic. And it's Simple and Bit. Times it to perfection. And Simple sitting, no! Disaster! An absolute disaster!
And I feel bad, man. That motherfucker carried his entire team with Amanek as an AWPer into a major final. Literally one of the greatest hard carry jobs in all of Counter-Strike. And all he gets remembered for are those deagle shots. I'm not even gonna hold you. I would say me and Nico are fairly equivalent in skill. Maybe I'm slightly better, but even I would have probably missed that shot, bro. Trying to shoot someone in the back of the skull, damn near impossible. And I swear, sometimes that deagle do not be shooting straight. I swear to God, bro. So I don't even want to blame him for this choke. This was the universe forcing the choke upon him. I'm telling you. But yeah, no, shit is heartbreaking, man. Berlin 2019, I think, has to be Team Liquid. They didn't do anything like egregious during this tournament, I don't think. It's just the fact that Astralis was looking like they were on the downturn in form. I guess this is kind of similar to the Budapest Major with Vitality and Furia, except imagine like Budapest Furia but on crack. Team Liquid literally was the fastest team to ever win an Intel Grand Slam. They were unfathomably dominant in the early part of 2019. And besides the Krakow Major at the start of the year, Astralis hadn't won a single other tournament. It did seem like they were kind of just taking a break as well. It was a mix of a lot of factors. But yeah, going into this tournament, Liquid was without a doubt the hottest team in the entire game. They truly looked unstoppable until Astralis came back from their slumber and simply made them look very stoppable, actually.
And May just got no idea. It catches Stewie completely off the deagle. He must be aggressive and he can't.
For Liquid, it looks like it will be. Meg is chewing them up with the flank, and he's going to get to, looking for the headshot.
The information, it's perfectly. Dupree's a little bit lucky, but he's in even better. Come trying to take the bomb site, but Dupree stands tall with the double kill. Haven't seen the boost coming just yet.
Probably make it out. 30 seconds, and he walks into the fire.
This is also where they sneak picked Vertigo on them.
To just go straight.
The daring pick is Nuke here. Is to say, listen, forget everything.
Oh my God. Oh, it's happened, the curveball.
They've gone and done it, right?
A new addition to the map pool, Vertigo, and it's here in the quarterfinal.
Actually, one of the most legendary map picks of all time. It's truly generational stuff. But yeah, man, this is just like leaves a sour taste in my mouth because this was supposed to be Liquid's moment. And Astralis just comes out of nowhere and slaps them down like it's nothing. I mean, like, is it even really a choke when I think truly Liquid just wasn't as good as Astralis? Maybe it was still a choke, but I don't know, man. That was tough scenes. Kato 2019, I think without a doubt has to be NRG. Bro, this was, I mean, 2019 was a tough time to be an NA fan. I get that Liquid was dominant. NRG was also incredibly good, but like major-wise, oh my god, bro. At the time of this major, NRG was the number 4 ranked team in the world. They were incredibly good during this period. But despite this, they would go 0-3 in groups, losing to NIP, a Vanguard, and 0-2 to Complexity. And that match against Complexity was extremely brutal when you consider, like I said, NRG was the number 4 ranked team in the world, and Complexity was number 41. The one thing I will say is maybe Complexity was a little bit underrated during this time, because the match after this, they had to play FaZe, who was at the time the number 5 ranked team in the world, and while they did lose, they won map 1 and then lost map 3 dust 16-14, so it was a really competitive series at least. So yeah, I guess you could say Liquid again for this event, because they did lose to ENCE in the quarters, but ENCE also went on to beat the number 3 ranked team Na'Vi right after that. I think ENCE was just on crack during this event. They were incredibly good, and I do think NRG bombing out 0-3 is a little worse. For London 2018, I think I'm gonna have to go with North. In 2018, we had a very weird thing happen. The tournament right before was DreamHack Master Stockholm 2018, a true S-tier tournament. And in the finals of this tournament, we'd actually have a Danish derby with Astralis playing North. At the time, Astralis was the number 1 ranked team in the world, and North was number 10. Then North went on to beat Astralis 2-1 in this final, which catapulted them to the number 4 ranked team in the world going into this tournament. And so after being incredibly hot, just taking down the best team in the entire world, you would think North would come into London looking pretty good. But instead, in the challenger stage, not even the main group stage, they would lose to Hellraisers, lose to Spirit, to go down 0-2. Then they would beat VP, go into a trillion overtimes against Hiko Rogue, and barely squeak their way into a 2-2 game once again in the challenger stage, not even in the group stage. And in that 2-2 game, they would meet Vega Squadron, where they would lose 0-2. Going into this game, North was ranked the number 4 team in the world, like I said, and Vega Squadron was ranked number 211. The team who had just taken down Astralis had been knocked out of the London Major by a team that was not even ranked in the top 200. I mean, fuck, man. I guess they used all their juice at the tournament right before. There's no other explanation. The Boston Major. We all know what this is. We all know what I'm gonna say, but there is another one that I want to bring up at least. Everyone's gonna say FaZe 15-11, and I agree, okay? It's one of the most brutal chokes in Counter-Strike history, not because of just choking a 15-11. Losing 4 rounds in a row is not that hard. It's just because FaZe was this big, bad, evil super team, easily coming into this major as the favorites, and that mixed with Cloud9's insane underdog run, being up 15-11 on map 3 and then just kind of crumbling. It really does go down as one of the most brutal chokes in Counter-Strike history, and one of the main reasons why Nico still doesn't have a major win and Guardian retired without one. But like I said, there was another extreme choke that happened this tournament that I want to bring up, and that is Mouse versus Quantum Bellator Fire. QBF was kind of a fan favorite during this time, but no one expected them to make the playoffs. And well, in a 2-1 game against Mouse, who was the number 7 ranked team in the world at the time, with QBF being ranked number 28, it looked like it was business as usual. Mouse would go up 13-2 on the CT side of Train, and then somehow those fuckers would win 1 round for the entire rest of the game, losing to Quantum Bellator Fire 16-14, which ended up sending the underdog QBF into the playoffs. And listen, bro, I get that Train is a CT-sided map. Fellas, you were up 13-2. Like, how are we at the bare minimum not matching that and at least going to overtime? I do think this probably would be a lot worse as well if it was like a 2-2 game, because after this, Mouse still ended up making the playoffs after beating Space Soldiers in their 2-2 game, so it didn't end up being that big of a deal, but like even still. But yeah, no, this still 1000% has to go to FaZe 15-11. I think PGL Major Krakow kind of has to go to Astralis. After they got matched up with SK, who was the number 1 ranked team in the world at the time, in the quarters, and they beat them 2-0. At that point, you're looking at the semifinals and you're going, holy fuck. You have Gambit, Immortals, and VP, who Astralis had just beaten in the last major finals and had fallen all the way down to number 15 ranked in the world. This major was looking like a cakewalk for Astralis. I mean, look at this. Astralis is the number 3 ranked team, Gambit 14, Immortals Immortals 11, and VP 15. Astralis was the only top 10 ranked team in the entire semifinals. And then that beautiful motherfucker Zeus had to put him in their place. And I mean, it's not like in this series Astralis had a huge choke. Don't get me wrong. In map 3, they were gaining a ton of momentum, being on the CT side of train in the second half. And after being down 12-6, they had come all the way back to make the score nearly tied up at 13-12. But then we simply got the absolutely goated, unbelievable Zeus French timeout along with a real timeout, and Gambit just didn't lose another T round. But I would say overall, when you look at this tournament, you have to be thinking to yourself, Astralis really threw a chance at another major down the drain. But then again, they did make up for this in the future, I would say. For E-League Atlanta, I would say without a doubt the worst choke here has to be North once again. Some brutal Danish chokes during this time, man. In the quarterfinals here, it would be a really good match between the number 4 ranked team in the world, Virtus Pro, and the number 6 ranked team in the world, North. And after VP would win map 1 on Overpass, North would win map 2 on Cash, and then we would go to a map 3 Cobblestone. And to start this map 3 Cobblestone, North would go up 12-3 on the CT side, with Magisk having an unfathomable life game. He must have chugged like 5 Red Bulls before this map happened, because he truly was looking demonic during this. But then unfortunately for North, round after round after round, the plow would keep on chugging along until eventually VP would come all the way back to win the map 16-13. And what makes this even more heartbreaking is when you look at the ratings on North. Look at what Magisk was doing. 37 goddamn kills, a 128 ADR, and a 1.83 rating. And then look at his teammates. Magisk was absolutely heartbroken after this happened, and I can imagine why he put his heart and soul into this map, and it wasn't enough. I think the worst choke from ESL 1 Cologne 2016 has to be from one of the most famous choking teams in Counter-Strike history, and that is NIP. At the time of Cologne happening, NIP was the number 4 ranked team in the world, and they would be put in a group with Na'Vi, Flipside, and Optic. And while at this time they were the highest ranked team in this entire group, Na'Vi was right behind them at number 5, Optic was at number 16, and Flipside was the lowest ranked team in the group, being ranked number 23. And to start, business would go as usual, as NIP would win 16-4 against Optic. They would then lose a close 16-12 game against Na'Vi, and in their qualification match to make the major playoffs, they would be playing the lowest ranked team in the group in Flipside. They had just beaten Optic 16-13 to even be in this situation. And while as you would expect going into this series, NIP would be heavily favored. You know, Flipside wasn't horrible, but they weren't nearly to the level of NIP was. They had World Edit, Markaloff, Waylander, Shara, and the GOAT Blade. And after NIP won the first map 16-14, you would think the series is just simply going to be over. But then on NIP's own map pick, Cash, they would lose 16-2 and then lose Mirage 16-11. The highest ranked team in this entire group had just lost to the lowest ranked team in this entire group to miss the Cologne playoffs. MLG Major Columbus 2016. This isn't even up for debate. This is quite literally the worst choke job in Counter-Strike history. It is the worst choke job I have ever seen. I mean, bro, during this time, North American CS fans were playing Russian roulette, but there wasn't a single spot in that chamber that was empty. Let me tell you what, I mean, bro. In the semifinals, Luminosity would be playing Liquid, which was kind of a surprise matchup because Liquid was the number 18 ranked team in the world at the time. And well, they were projected to get blown out by Luminosity, who was the number 4 ranked team in the world. But Liquid was a fun team. They had a Dren, a Liege, North American legend Hiko, Nitro, and a Ukrainian Opper Simple. And somehow, by the grace of God, Liquid would start dominating on map 1, going up 15-9. This is when Cold Zero would happen.
Before the same spot, but with much more utility to work with. Here he comes once again. The first base is a Dren. He's going to hit the ground there as Cold. Oh, what? A jumping double from Cold! What is going on right now? How does he do this?
They wouldn't win another round the entire map, losing the map in overtime 19-15, but it was fine. It was only one map. Liquid would dominate the fuck out of Cash. It wasn't even close. They'd start winning 15-6. Sure, they had just choked a 15-9 lead, but 15-6 that's unlosable. They then went on to lose 9 rounds in a row, only win 1 round in overtime, and lose the map 19-16, you know. Going over a lot of these earlier majors, it is kind of hard to say what big chokes happened, because in a lot of situations, what you would expect happened during this time of Counter-Strike. In the early days of CSGO, there was a significantly wider gap between like the good tier 1 teams and everyone else. So more often than not, what you would expect to happen would kind of happen. And then, you know, it'd be the top 5 teams in the world. Who's gonna win that? Who knows? But other than that, like pretty, you know, average stuff happened. But I would say for Cluj, at least in my opinion, it has to be G2 versus Envy. The choke wasn't anything insane, but G2 is like this really, really cool, one of the first international teams. Nobody really thinks something like this can work, but in the quarters, they beat the number 3 ranked team in the world, VP. This Cinderella story international team might be going on a run. They then play Envy, where they win the first map 16-10, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, G2 is about to fucking do it. And then in map 2 Inferno, let me tell you what, this was a barn burner of a match. We go to overtime. Envy wins one round, G2 wins the next, vice versa. We keep going back and forth. Then somehow, by the grace of God, the miracle run G2 roster goes up 21-18 in double OT. This is it. 3 map points. You were the underdog in the quarters. You were the underdog in the semis, but here you are. All you have to do is win 1 round, and you're in the major final. They then go on to lose 7 rounds in a row, and then they get kind of blown out on map 3 cash. They didn't stand a chance. I mean, this is, for me, just heartbreaking. I think it is without a doubt a choke. The moment was just too big. It's just a tough scenes, man. I'd say Cologne 2015 is like the most chokeless major ever. There wasn't anything really that insane that happened here. You know, I would say at the time, like the best teams in the world are Fnatic, Envy, TSM, VP, and Na'Vi. Fnatic and Envy were in the final, along with TSM and VP being in the semis. Like 4 of the best teams in the world were all in the semis. That makes sense. But I guess the one team you could say that did choke here was probably Cloud9. The first group they were in was with VP, and it makes sense that VP would be the one to make it out of that group and not them. But then they got a second chance in a group with Kinguin and Immunity. Now, we also have to understand that during this time, Cloud9 hadn't won any S-tier tournaments. But you guys remember the Cloud9 tank top summer? Well, that was now. They had made the finals of 3 S-tier events, looking like without a doubt the best North American team in the world and just one of the best teams in the world. And well, unfortunately, in that second group, they would lose to Kinguin 13-16 and get eliminated without making the playoffs. Now, this Kinguin team was just the early G2 team that I just talked about, so it's not like they were horrible, but Cloud9 should have been the one making it out of that group and at least bare minimum making the playoffs. For Kato 2015, I'd say without a doubt the worst choke was Titan, because to end 2014, according to Liquipedia, which used Thorin's December 13th, 2014 rankings, they were the number 7 ranked team in the world, and in a group with Envy, Penta, LGB, and Titan, they would end up losing to Envy 16-14, which is unfortunate, but it's like, oh, whatever. But then, in their next game, they would need to play German team Penta. Titan has Kenny S, RPK, Maniac, Existence, and Apex. Penta has Dennis, Nex, Crystal, Speedy, and Troubly. I don't think it's crazy to say Titan was without a doubt the favorites here, and Titan would lose this game 16-4. They would get blown out. So yeah, I would say definitely kind of a wild underperformance from them. DreamHack winner 2014 is significantly easier to pick out what the worst choke was, and it was of course another NA team. It was once again against Penta. Penta was the early days gamer legion, I guess. Around this time, iBuyPower was the best North American team in the world, and at DreamHack winner 2014, they'd be put in a group with Dignitas, Penta, and Copenhagen Wolves. They were definitely favored to make it out of this group and make the playoffs at least, and after beating Copenhagen Wolves 16-4 in their first game, they would unfortunately fall to Dignitas in the next 7-16, and then have to play Penta for a spot in the playoffs, where they would start incredibly well on Inferno CT side, going up 13-2. They then went on to have one of the most diabolically horrific T sides that I have ever seen, winning 0 rounds for the entire rest of the game. The best team in all of North America would lose to Penta 13-16, missing the playoffs of DreamHack winner 2014. Let's look at iBuyPower's scoreboard real quick. Swag, 1.7 rating, then everyone else. Swag tried his hardest, man. I would have crashed the fuck out if that was me, to be honest with you. Just a diabolical match all around. Cologne 2014 is another one of those situations where it's kind of hard for me to find a truly bad choke. I'd say probably the worst one of this event is Dignitas versus Fnatic in the semis. Dignitas was a full Danish team with the Astralis core of Zippix, Device, Dupree, and then AZ and Fetish. And after losing map 1 Dust 2 16-11, they looked to start out incredibly strong on Overpass, going up 11-4. They then only won 3 rounds on their T side and ended up losing Overpass 16-14. And well, for this Dignitas core, after this match, for years and years and years, they would go on to be considered chokers at majors, because at pretty much every single one, they would perform well. There was like this seemingly hard stuck ceiling they couldn't get over until they eventually broke through in 2017. Kato 2014. I mean, we might as well talk about the first 2 majors of the game. Kato 2014 and DreamHack Winter 2013, because they both are about the same team. NIP came into CSGO as the most dominant team, having the unfathomable land streak that they had. But in the first ever major, NIP ended up losing to Fnatic, which literally nobody saw coming. So for DreamHack Winter 2013, it is without a doubt NIP. But then at the Kato 2014 major, they once again would make the finals and lose to another underdog. But instead of calling out the entire team, for Kato 2014, I'm just going to call out one player, because there was one player that you're going to notice choked a little bit harder than others. Fiflaren, who I truly do think had the worst major final performance in Counter-Strike history, would in 2 maps against VP post 9 total kills. 9 total kills and a .28 rating. Yep, he went 9-44. The next closest on his team was had 28 kills. A .28 rating in a major final, man. Holy fuck. But yeah, the first 2 majors has to be NIP. Realistically, they should have won both of these. But like Kato, I have to single out Fiflaren, because it is just, that is a diabolical ass performance. Anyways, that's it for me today, fellas. I hope you enjoyed me talking about the beautiful, beautiful chokes that we have in Counter-Strike history. And I just think this is a fun topic to go over, because I am going to be more surprised if we don't get a diabolical choke at Cologne this year. Surely we get something. You know, maybe it's Falcons. It's going to be Falcons. I'm excited to see what happens, guys. But yeah, if you enjoyed the video, like. If you want to subscribe-ing. And if you want to turn on notifications, turn on notifications. And that's it for me, fellas. I will see you guys next time. I'm autistic.